Again, I don't drink alcohol, so it's like, this is gonna have to do for me. Oh, God. So, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Yeah, let's get through it. Let's get through this one. It's probably going to take an eternity for you to get through this movie. So where are we at now? Will and Elizabeth join forces with the revived Captain Barbossa, played once again by Geoffrey Rush, in order to free Jack Sparrow from Davy Jones' locker. Meanwhile, the crew of the Flying Dutchman ghost ship wreaks havoc on the seven seas. So our heroes must navigate dangerous waters to confront infamous pirate Sao Fang, played by Chow Yun-fat. And ultimately they must choose sides in a battle wherein the pirate life hangs in the balance. Oh dear mother of God. Okay, where to begin? Okay, so maybe it's best to look at the good stuff first, right? When you look at this cast across the board, those reprising their roles and the ones that we're just introduced to, everyone looks like they're having a great time. This is Johnny Depp's signature role, and nobody can prove me otherwise. This guy, I mean, he's on a whole other level as Captain Jack Sparrow, man. He is just so fun to watch. As is Geoffrey Rush, who freaking kills it once again. Albeit a little bit contrived and forced with his character's return. I don't know, wasn't he killed off at the end of Black Pearl? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of story elements here that feel a little bit muddy. But back to the good stuff, I also really enjoyed the direction as well as the production design. The opening scene before the big Maelstrom battle with Chow Yun-fat and his crew, it looks legitimately like the overlay of the ride. There's a few scenes that look like they have the same exact backdrop as a number of scenes on the famous ride it's based on. And you know what? Freaking kudos to At World's End for actually still paying homage to the source material properly. Because oh my, once it gets into the actual story, it's a mess. I mean, I have fun watching this movie overall. Like, where Dead Man's Chest has a number of flaws that you can't really ignore, you still have tons of fun watching Dead Man's Chest. At World's End, on the other hand, don't really gravitate towards that one as much. Sure, you may argue that, okay, this is the big finale to the trilogy. You're supposed to feel grim and depressed and hopeless, you know, in order to feel like the ending is a lot more satisfying, right? But I think it's the way they get from Dead Man's Chest into At World's End that's super jarring to me. And I'm sorry, when you go from the jar of dirt playground taunting from Jack Sparrow into an opening scene where you see a small child get hung in the gallows, like for God's sake, at least in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in the Harry Potter universe, that hopelessness is built up and it feels warranted. When you open up At World's End with Beckett, who is not really that interesting of a character, and I'll get to him in a second, but it's like... Oh, God. Why did this open with a hanging scene? I have the same problem with Dead Man's Chest, where you could just trim off some of the fat, and you could get through the good portion of the movie quicker. Because that's another thing. Near 3 hours long, At World's End is way too f***ing long, guys. Now again, some of you might argue, but oh, Zack, this is the end of a trilogy. You should have it feel epic. Like, you should get more action in this thing. You should be happy. Why are you complaining about a Pirates movie in 2023? I'll tell you why I'm complaining about it. You guys voted this in, so, yeah, here we are. Here we are. Like, there's scenes that you could get done dusted within 5 minutes or so and still get the same effects that the movie is going for. Yet they take like 20 to 25 minutes to get through a lot of those things. And my God, like, this script overall really does feel like they had no floor map or any sort of plan. Because there are certain character dynamics which, if you look at the difference from the previous film, these motivations have swapped on a dime. Like, when they go to rescue him in Dead Man's Chest, right? It actually feels like the crew actually misses Jack, like they value his company. At World's End, it just feels like it's more of an obligation rather than a desire. Speaking of desire, oh my God, Will and Elizabeth, man. Will and Elizabeth in this movie. So Elizabeth kisses Jack in the previous movie. Will is jealous, right? He looks at Elizabeth and he's like, I love you. Why are you kissing this man? And then he realizes that Elizabeth deserted him. Shouldn't he be relieved? Like, why is he upset with her all of a sudden? Like, honestly, I think if Will Turner was more relieved once that whole plot point was revealed, I think it would have made that character so much more interesting because you really examine his moral compass in a different way. And don't even get me started on Elizabeth, because when she volunteers to be taken captive by Chow Yun-fat and his crew, who, by the way, I mean, I hate to keep going on tangents, but Chow Yun-fat is a brilliant actor, known for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, one of the most beautiful action movies of all time. He's doing all he can with this material that he's given, which isn't really much. It's very par for the course and very minimal, very plain for a villain. I don't know why this guy took this project. I really don't. But Elizabeth just decides to go with him just to get one back at will. Good on ya. Okay, so I mentioned Chow Yun-fat as a villain. He's advertised on the poster, certainly. Not the main villain, though. The main villain is the one who's orchestrating the hanging that I mentioned at the beginning of the movie. This is a colonial soldier named Beckett. And oh my god, is he boring. Now, some may argue that this is a stark contrast to all the swashbuckling mayhem going on. Very much the straight-laced jabroni who's overseeing all this madness. And yeah, when you put it like that, I can understand why this character was so uptight about everything. But come on, I mean, like, you could have made him at least physically imposing. I think if you were a little bit more physically, I don't know if it's the performance or what about this character I really freaking despise. But as a villain, just didn't really grasp me in the slightest. Especially when you have Bill Nighy returning as Davy Jones. And again, he's playing the piano with his tentacles and it just looks so freaking villainous. Love it! More of that, please! More of that! But instead, no. Davy Jones is second in command to Beckett, pretty much under his submission. Great! Like, imagine if you introduced Thanos in Infinity War. Great freaking character, right? Probably the best movie that MCU has ever put out, bar none. Thanos is revealed to be the main villain in Infinity War, but then in Endgame, it's actually revealed he's the second in command to Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2. Like, how lame does that sound? God, I didn't think this movie was gonna piss me off as much as it did when I started recording. Oh my god. Well, not to mention, movie clocks in almost 3 hours. It's a pirate movie. It takes about 2 hours to get an actual sword fight. The only other big action sequence you get is that Maelstrom battle at the beginning on that ride overlay. And then it's just a whole bunch of dialogue, exposition, for a final movie, mind you. Exposition, muddied character motivations, swapped allegiances, Davy Jones being a second in command to a straight-laced jabroni. God, guys, I mean, looking back in hindsight, I have fun with some aspects of this movie. Like, I love Johnny Depp once again. Love seeing Geoffrey rush, as rushed as his return was. No pun intended there. Yeah, At World's End is pretty much a gigantic mess. Easily out of the original trilogy, this one is my least favorite. And I haven't seen On Stranger Tides or Dead Men Tell No Tales in a long time. That's why I'm really excited that you guys actually had me do this playlist. Because I don't know if I'll like 4 and 5 more than this one. This might actually be my least favorite of the series. And for something that was supposed to be this big, gigantic, epic conclusion, like, this was Rise of Skywalker before Rise of Skywalker, essentially. Which I don't think is necessarily a good thing. Because even though you kept the same director, you did make the mistake of shooting both of these back-to-back. You should have spaced them out a little bit more. Because this came out just a mere year after Dead Man's Chest. Not even a year. I feel like they should have waited to release this movie. Because at this point, I feel like the craze about pirates around 2007 had worn off a little bit. Kind of overexposed. My god, just such a jarring move from the taunting all the way to a freaking hanging in the gallows in the opening. Oh my god. I'm gonna give At World's End a C-. I realize that grade might be low for a lot of people, but you know what? That's what's great about movies. I can have my opinion. You guys can love At World's End if you want to, and we can discuss it as respectfully as possible. Even though I just completely ripped this movie a new one, but yeah. What the heck? Let me know what you thought of At World's End down in the comments section below. Is this your favorite Pirates movie so far? Easily the first movie has taken the cake here. But I love making these videos and discussing all things movies with you guys over here on the regular. So do consider becoming a subscriber because the discussion is just going to keep on coming. Smash that like button as well. That's a huge help to continue to grow this community out here. Y'all are the best. Stay tuned for more videos very soon. And with all that being said, back talk commence.